Hey guys, welcome in MK Study Journal. Today we will discuss about the major feature of each version of Java programming language. Here I have captured a quick snap of major feature of Java language. So here MK Study Journal is my blog and I have listed all the features per version of Java language. So let's start from the initial release 1.0. So in 1996 Java programming language was introduced, so all the feature were new. So core feature like oops concept, primitive data types, and basic language support like if else block, loop, switch statement, etc. All the features were new. So you can say a new programming language was introduced in 1996. After that, after some time, in 1997, after 1 year, there were some enhancement in this language. So I have listed down all the enhancement here. So in 1.1 JDBC like Java database connectivity was introduced. Then inner class, like the features of inner class, which contains like a static inner class, nested inner class, anonymous inner class. Actually anonymous was introduced later on, but static and nested inner class were introduced. Then Java beans, Java archive, file format, a math package. So here we know that math package was not in the main original API like in Java 1.0. It was introduced in 1.1. Then object serialization. Object serialization like saving the state of the object. So serialization feature was introduced in 1.1. Then remote method invocation and then further reflection. Basically reflection API to get the method and class details using the reflection. So these features were introduced in 1.1 in 1997. Now move on to the 1.2. Java 1.2 introduced in 1998, like after 1 year of 1.1. Few more features were in. So these features are collection framework, Java string memory map for constant, just-in-time compiler, and jar signer for signing Java archive files, policy tool for granting access to system resources, then Java foundation classes, which consist of Swing 1.0, so basically drag and drop features of Java 2D class libraries. Then Java plugin, scrollable result sets, so here basically blob, claw, batch, update, user defined JDBC. Audio support in applets, weak reference, and then Java interface definition language and Java DOM. So these features of Java 1.2. So as a developer perspective, so the major point to remember is collection framework in 1.2, then Java string memory map of our constant, just-in-time compiler, Java plugin, and then scrollable result set like blob, claw, batch, update, user-defined JDBC, and weak reference were introduced in 1.2. So these are the major points that need to be in mind. Now move on to the 1.3. 1.3 was a minor release, like it have only few features that are listed here. Basically Java sound, jar indexing, and improved applet caching. So these are three features in Java 1.3. Now move on to the 1.4. Java 1.4 contain these 11 features. Actually there are also other features, but like I have listed down the only major features that needs to be remembered. So first one is XML processing, Java print services, logging API, Java web start, JDBC 3.0 API, basically JDBC 3.0 connectivity, assertion, preferences API, chained exception, IPv6 support, regular expression, and image IO API. like processing of XML, like we can process the XML using Java API, then Java print services to print the data. Logging API, basically logging, or we know the features of logging. And then Java App Start JDBC 3.2 to connect the with the Java database to version 3.0. And here the chained exception is basically we can cache the exception in the chain, like multiple cache block in the chained exception. Then IPv6 regular expression and image IO API. So these are the major feature in one. Okay, so now move ahead to the version 5.0. So version 5.0 onwards, JDK introduced a new naming API, naming for their version as JDK 5. So 5 onwards it will be like JDK 5, JDK 6, JDK 7, like that. So in JDK 5, so it was released in 2004, and these are the major features to remember for version 5. So like generics were introduced in 5.0. So what is generics? So generics are basically compile time type safety. In collection we can store the data, and there is no type safety at compile time. Like within a collection like sit or list, we can add different types of data, and at runtime it will throw exception, like if we store a different type of data in a single collection. Now in compile time we specify the data types on the collection, like set integer, and the declare the set and store all the integer type. If we store anything apart from integer, it will give a compile time error. So that's why generics provide a compile time type safety. Then enhancement for loop. So there was a new loop. For each loop was introduced in 5.0. So in for each loop, so what is the benefit of this loop? Basically in for loop we provide the index equal to 0, and then something like condition, and then enhancement. So in that loop there was a some issue. The issues like index out of bound exception when something wrong happen, or misuse of loop. So to avoid that kind of indexing error or index out of bound exception, we use for each loop. So this is an enhancement in the loop. Then next feature is auto boxing and unboxing. So basically auto boxing and unboxing is converting the primitive data types to the wrapper classes and wrapper classes to the primitive data types. So that is auto boxing and unboxing. The next thing is Typesafe Enum. So this is basically enumeration are added in Java 5, and enums are implicit final subclasses. Then variable arguments. So variable arguments are added in version 5, and the variable arguments are specified like this. This is the way we can specify, and there are some constraint on variable arguments, like in a method only one variable argument should be there, and that should be the last statement. Okay, so next feature is static import. So the benefit of static import is we can import a particular field or variable using a static import instead of importing a complete class. So this is introduced in version 5. The next one is the metadata, basically annotation. So annotation was introduced in this version. We can provide annotation, and annotation have some metadata features, and JDK perform action or some kind of validation as per the that annotation, and like as per the information mentioned in the metadata. Next feature is instrumentation. So instrumentation is instrumentation is the addition of bytecode for the purpose of gathering the data for monitoring agents, profilers, and coverage and event logger tools. So what is instrumentation? So instrumentation is basically using the agent profiler class. We can add, like there are method pre-agent, post-agent, and in this method we can add some logic to get the bytecode information, and we can use these bytecode information for the code coverage, profilers, loggings, and another like performance gathering kind of things. So this is the features introduced in this version. The next is the covariant return type. So what is covariant? Covariant is basically a subtype of a supertype. Like in a overridden method, if a parent method is returning a parent class, so the overridden method can return the subtype of that particular parent method. So that is a covariant return type. Then string builder. So string builder avoid the memory issue with the string, like this kind of operation. So if we perform this kind of operation using a string, so string actually takes a lot of memory to create these operation. So instead of using this string, we can use string builder and simply use its append method, and finally we can convert that string builder to the string. So that will avoid the issue with the string. And string builder is basically, it's not a thread safe. So here you can see that uh, an string builder object. So although string builder is not thread safe. Okay, so these are the major feature in Java 5.0. Okay, so move on to the next version, JDK 6. So in Java 6, here are few features that I have listed down. So basically first one is scripting language supports. So like Java 6 onwards, Java language is supporting Java scripting language, basically UI languages, Java scripting language. Then JDBC 4.0 API, so basically Java database connectivity driver 4.0 was introduced in 6, like in this version. Then Java compiler API, pluggable annotation, then native PKI, then Java, GSS, Kerberos and LDAP support. So basically these are for like certificate, and Kerberos and LDAP authentications were introduced in this feature, and the integrated web services were also in this version was introduced. So these are the major feature that was in Java 6. Now let's move on to the Java 7. So Java 7 have again the major feature was introduced, and these features are like useful for the developer. So basically you can see here a string in switch statement. So now we can use string in switch statement. Earlier Java 7, in the switch statement we can provide only constant and primitive values. Now we can provide the string in the switch statement. Then type inference for generic instance creation. So here we can see that like we can substitute the parameterized type of constructor with an empty set of type parameter, like we can simply replace with empty type parameter. Then the multiple exception handling, earlier Java 7, to handle multiple exception we introduced multiple catch block. Now we can add multiple exception in a single catch block with the pipe separation. So we can add exception 1, then pipe separation exception 2, then pipe separation exception C. So like this kind of in this pattern we can add multiple exception in a single try catch block. Now the next thing is supporting of dynamic language. So in Java 7 it's supporting the dynamic language like JRuby, Jython can run extremely fast in JVM. So these languages can now run extremely fast. So next feature is try with resources. So basically in Java 7 we can use try catch block, like inside the try block we can create a resource, and this resource is auto closable, like it will implement auto closable interface and it will close automatically. We need not to close that resource. So this is the use of try with resource. The next is binary literal underscore in literals. So for the binary literals we can add underscores so to make it more readable. Like within the binary literal we can put underscore within the literal and make it more readable. Then integral type like byte, short, int, long can also be expressed using the binary number system. Now the next thing is automatic null handling. So I have added this feature only to like knowledge, because this was not introduced in Java 7. So this was only in the pilot phase. and it was not in final release. So what is automatic null handling? So this was basically when in a nested object, if we mention like question mark like this, so it will automatically handle the null for all these objects, but it was not released in the final version of Java 7. So we can avoid that. So these are the major feature of Java 7. Let's move on to the Java 8. So Java 8 is again a major release in Java. Here Java introduced the functional programming using the lambda expression. So in Java 8, here we can see all these major features are introduced. So basically lambda expression. So using lambda expression, like the operator and then the function body introduced in like this way. So here you can see the lambda expression is an introduction functional programming in Java. Lambda expression is an anonymous function and it contains a set of parameter, lambda operator and a function body. Then pipelines and streams. So basically pipelines is a sequence of aggregate operations, while streams carries values from a source through pipelines. So streams basically contains a lot of ready-made function, and we can use this function in the collection. Like there are a lot of filter function, mathematical function and logical function. We can operate those function on the collections and get the data from the using those functions. Okay, so the next thing is default method. So earlier to Java 8, in the interface we cannot provide any kind of implementation, but in Java 8 onwards we can add default and static default method in interface and provide the implementation for those methods like default and default static method, and we can use these methods anywhere in the our classes where we are implementing this. Then the function interface. So function interface is the interface basically which have only one abstract method, and it have any number of default and static method. And this abstract method so the purpose of function interface to use lambda expression and avoid bulky anonymous class implementation. So in function interface we can provide some kind of mathematical logic or some business logic, and we can use that logic in our lambda expression. So in function interface like the predicates and bidirectional function interface, so there are a lot of ready-made function interface that we can use in the lambda expression. Even we can also define our own function interface. The next thing is date and time API. So earlier to Java 8 there was a issue in the date API with the immutable class. So in the date API date class we get the data object and we can modify that object. It was not completely immutable. Now it is handled in Java 8 and make it more with immutable. Like the new date and time APIs introduced to overcome the thread safety and potential concurrency issue. In new API, core classes are immutable and represent well-defined values. So here we can see that these classes are completely immutable, and it contains precise domain uses with the different calendaring system. So it's contain also some domain and calendaring system like some enhancement and more features. The next thing is the type annotation. So these are the type annotation like not, null, read only and regex, so that we can define over the variables and the method, and we can use these annotations. The next thing is the concurrent accumulator and adder. So these are the concurrency. So basically accumulator and adder are used for numeric counter instead of atomic variable, would spin continuously retrying the CS in an infinite loop until it succeeded. So this is like concurrent accumulator and adder. The next thing is the parallel operation. So parallel operation helps to speed up the different operation as a numeric computation. As we know, parallel operation, so we can add a parallel operation in the stream. So we have parallel, using the parallel stream we can perform the operation in parallel. Okay, next thing is Nashon JavaScript. So it's a JavaScript engine which directly compile the code in memory, passes the byte code in the JVM. So Java 8 introduced a new command line code JJS to execute JavaScript code. This means like with using this engine now we can directly execute the JavaScript code in the JVM. So okay, so the next thing is the PUMGen inner removes. So earlier to Java 8 we see out of memory error due to the permgen, because once the permgen space is full it will give out of memory error. Now the permgen is removed with the meta space. So meta space, the size of meta space is allocated dynamically. Once the meta space size is full it will allocate dynamically and increase its size. So now we will not face this kind out of memory error anymore. So these are the major feature of Java 8. Let's move to the Java 9. So here these are the features of the Java 9. So basically the first one is like a factory method for immutable class. So earlier to Java 9 we used the collection utils unmodifiable method to create an immutable collection. Now we can use list.off, set.off and map.off to create the immutable collection. Then the private and private static method in the interface. So now we can provide the private and private static method with the implementation in the interface. The next thing is a modular system. So in Java 9 we can create a module within the project to avoid the complexity and monolithic jars. So module system make more easy and refactor the project in a different module. The next thing is the improvement in the process API. So basically with the help of the process API in Java 9 there are few methods introduced to get the details of the OS processes. The next thing is the improvement the try with resource block. So there is a change in the try with resource path. Actually earlier in Java 8, actually in Java 7, the try with resource we can define the resource within the try block and not outside the try. But in Java 9 now we can create the try block, a resource outside the try block, and we can use it. So here improvement try with resource, now we can declare the resource outside the try with resource block. The next thing is JSL. So JSL is a read evaluate print loop. So using the JSL we can execute the function and code directly in JSL instead of writing complete Java classes and methods. So we go to the Java library bin folder and we can execute the JSL and write our code directly in the JSL instead of writing the methods and classes. Okay, next feature is reactive stream. So reactive stream is introduced in this version. To support reactive stream programming, Java introduced reactive stream like flow, publisher, subscriber, processor to support it. So reactive programming language is basically we have an input data stream, then we are processing the data stream asynchronously, and then the output data stream. So here we have publisher for input data stream, like it will publish the data, then the processor which will process the data, and then the subscriber which will subscribe the data, which is basically a output data stream. So these features reactive stream is used in this version. Then the next thing is improvement in stream API. So here we can see that there are few features introduced in stream API. Drop while, take while, these methods were introduced in the stream API, and the enhancement in the completable future. So in completable future now we can add the delay using the static utility method delay executor. So here these are the features of Java 9. Let's move to the next version, Java 10 and 11. Actually Java 10 was a minor version, so Java 10 here I am adding the enhancement of Java 10 and 11 in a combined way. So Java 10, so basically there is an improvement in Java 10 which GC worst case latency. So actually GC worst case latency is poor than full GC parallel, so that's why improved in GC worst case. So GC worst case is replaced with the full GC parallel. And then the remove in the Java H, so native header was not used anymore, so it is removed from the Java 10. And in Java 11 feature, so there are some methods introduced in string. So here like a new method introduced in string, so is blank to check whether string is blank, then strip trailing and leading space, then strip trailing only trailing space, is strip leading it will strip only leading space, and the repeat, so it will check the repeat. Then the local variable type inference introduced. So basically within the lambda we can use variable or variable for defining the and formal parameters within the lambda expression, but there is a constraint like we cannot mix the parameter like a variable and with another parameters. So here we can say that we can declare all parameter with var or none, so we cannot mix with the other type, only we can define all or none. The next thing is the new method in the file class to read and write a string. So basically read a string and write a string. So the next feature is pattern with predicate utility. So as match predicate method. So in pattern there's a as match predicate method. So is introduced and it will create a predicate if pattern matched a given input string. So it will create a string if the input string is matched. So these are the features in Java 11. So let's move on to the Java 12. So here I have captured the few features of Java 12. So in Java 12 now we can use switch statement as a switch expression. Like we can get the return value from the switch statement. Then the next one is comparison of two files. So there is a mismatch method within the files class. So files dot mismatch, and here we can provide the path of file 1 and then the path of file 2. So it will return the mismatch of both the files. Then the next is a new package in like Java lang.constant, which is a part of JVM constant API. So basically there is a constant package for the all the JVM constant. Then the fourth is a new method in Java IO input stream is skip n bytes intent. So it will skip the first n bytes, like int if you mention 10, so it will skip the first 10 bytes. Now the next is the new method in string class. So string class have two methods, indent and transform method. And then the next feature is compacting number formatting. So basically like this is 10,000, so that can be written as a 10k. So this kind of compaction we can use in the Java language. So these are the major feature of Java 10, Java 12. So in our next session actually we will cover in detail uh, like Java 7, 8, 9 and 12. So all the features in detail with the example we will cover in our upcoming session. So thank you to all of you.